WOWT6. This is Heartland Focus.
Good morning and welcome to Heartland Focus. My name is Tim Clark. We have a great show planned for you this morning. Later on, joining me will be Chief of Police, Mr. Todd Smatter. We're going to come and talk about police reform, particularly have a conversation about policing in Black America. Really, what does that look like here in the Heartland, and challenges, opportunities, but also what other folks can learn from us here, right here in Omaha, Nebraska, because I do believe that we're doing a whole lot right. And as it comes to policing, we have a great police force here. And so, but first, I have Gene and Keith Jones is coming on to talk about a book that was authored by Gene. It's called Mix, Exploring What It Means to Be Blended in America. Welcome to Heartland Focus, you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Hey,
Thank you for having us.
Hey, it's good to see you guys. It's like I haven't seen you in so long, and just I want to kind of reach through the tube and hug you guys. It's been such a long time. So let's just do an air hug real quick. Air hug, boom, boom, boom. There we go. Well, I tell you, Gene, first of all, congratulations on authoring such a needed conversation and putting it in a book. Big ups. That's awesome. But let's jump in real quick in terms of just, we know what's going on in our world right here at home in America. Race is in our face all the time. Racism and just how we treat people. We say, freedom, justice, and equality for everybody, but really, do we really mean it? But this book, Mixed, exploring what it means to be blended in America. Talk about your motivation. What inspired you to write this and motivate?
What inspired me is exactly what you just laid out there. Race relations in America have been troubled. And we need to improve this. And I'm in a mixed race marriage and have a multiracial family. And importantly, what really inspired us was back in 2016 and into 2017, we started as a family to really notice a disturbing trend where race-based behaviors and words were starting to kind of become normalized and viewed as even categorized as political views versus hate. And that was really disturbing for us, and what prompted me to say, we need to do something about this. We need to tell our story, and we need to help others understand that downplaying race-based behaviors and words cannot be normalized. And there were actually two different instances with our family that really compelled me to say, let's move forward with this. And thank goodness I have the husband that I have, because he enabled me and our family to be able to do this. So thank you for that. But we had a situation with our son that we talk about in the book where it involves a white supremacist. And we also talk about our girls and the complexity of raising multiracial or mixed race children. And in our case, we have twins who one perceptually looks white and the other Black. And identity comes to the forefront in Mixed, and we talk about some of those experiences and trying to navigate those experiences. And my hope is that I really can come across in a way where we're both storytelling and educating, and specifically educating for me, readers on how my privilege has really been amplified by viewing the world through the lens of my husband and our children.
Yeah, and you used the word privilege, and we're hearing a lot of those kind of conversations in terms of just particularly white privilege and white supremacy and all these things. So I think this is just a right now type of conversation. What makes Mix so special? I mean, what in terms of just, I think some of the special came out of your conversation just now, but again, if you want to add on to that.
Yeah, absolutely. What I tried to do was combine storytelling and our real experiences as a family with historical context, going way back and discussing the history of race relations in our country, and then combining that with data and facts and statistics. And the other important part of this is I did not shy away from the tough topics. And I give Keith credit for this as well. I rewrote, and we kept coming back to him encouraging me to be brave and talk about the tough topics like privilege, like unconscious and implicit bias, like colorism, like the socioeconomic gaps that persist in our country, as well as the huge disparities in our criminal justice system that need to be addressed.
Man, that's so important to have those real conversations.
If I could, Tim, real quick, touch on something. I think it's very important for your viewers to know and understand also that sometimes when you bring up certain topics, when it comes down to race and things like that, unfortunately, sometimes you hear, well, white people can't really have that conversation, or a white person can't really talk to this or that, depending on what that subject is. And that's, to me, it's completely out of line and it's wrong, because my wife is the most caring and one of the most smartest people I know. And that's why I'm supporting her through this with her book, is because there's some tough conversations, there's some tough topics, but she faces them head on. And I think the book in society today is really relevant.
Yeah.
And I think once readers pick it up, there's a lot that they'll get out of it.
Okay.
And whether it's benefiting my kids, your kids, or just society as a whole.
There you go. That's awesome. How can people get the book? I think we had your website up. Maybe we could put that up again. Can they get it off your website?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And it's on all major distributors. So pretty much anywhere that sells books online, you should be able to get it. But I also wanted to give a shout out to Bookworm here locally. They do have it in stock, but anywhere online as well.
That's
if you
great.
want to buy local, Bookworm has it.
Well, I tell you, we most definitely going to have to have you come on so we can do a deeper dive in terms of lessons learned. I think people really need to have that kind of conversation. But from everything you know and that you've put in your book, a lot of these behaviors, hatred, racism, do you find that it's a learned behavior? Especially with your young, kids, how you talk about that a little bit? I only got like 60 seconds, but just gotta tease us a little bit, okay?
Tim, it comes down to implicit bias and the importance of teaching your children at a young age how reinforcements around you can shape how you think about things. We need to teach our kids at a young age that they're going to have biases, and we need to teach them strategies for overcoming those biases. Just like we teach them not to run out in front of a car and not to touch a hot stove or pet a strange dog. We need to teach our kids that there is bias. They need to be intentional and thoughtful about it, and there are strategies to overcome it. And we lay out some of those strategies in the book.
That's awesome. Hey, go get that book. I've already started reading the book, and I tell you, man, it's just, it really, and I thank you for not shying away from the tough conversations in this book. And I think when we'll leave on this note, but I think it's just it's forced upon all of us, white, black, blue, whoever, to be courageous and bold in this moment of just this crossroad that this world is in, and particularly the United States, that we got to stand up and speak up for what's right. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate you, and we'll have you come back. We're going to take,
Great.
right on.
Thanks so much, Tim.
Right on. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, joining me will be Chief Todd Smatter from the Omaha Police Department. Hey, welcome back to Heartland Focus. I'm your host, Tim Clark. My guest is Chief Todd Smatter with the Omaha Police Department. Welcome to Heartland Focus, man.
Hey, thanks, Tim. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, as you know, we see every day. I want to jump in because I think this is meaningful conversation that we must have. First of all, I want to say thank you to you and the officers out there that have taken that oath to serve and protect. And I'm going to tell you, brother, we need you. We need each other. And I want to say thank you, and that we got to figure out a way that we continue to move forward. And I referenced the conversation, and I'm not just saying it because I know you. We're doing the work here in Omaha, Nebraska. It is a much better situation than a lot of places in this country when it comes to community and police relations. We're putting in the work. So what's resonating with you, Chief, right now in terms of what you see and the work that we must do that's in front of us?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, there's a lot of work in front of us. As you see almost nightly on the national news, there's something related to policing, and it's not all positive. A lot of it is negative. So there's a lot of work for us to do. And the one thing that we have to start with is the just acknowledgement that we do need the police. I mean, you said that
and
before.
The officers out.
And we need that. But what we need is really good policing that's professional, that's unbiased, and has a strong desire to work with the community as a guardian mindset rather than anything more extreme than that. So if you start with that foundation, which we have here in Omaha, you can build off of that, and you can branch off of that with many different avenues, such as advanced community policing, such as your mental health initiatives, such as the partnerships that we have in place, and the many things that we're going to do in 2021 that'll even take us a step further. It's that foundation that you have to have. And what we're seeing across the country right now is a lot of cities trying to establish that foundation, trying to make that philosophical shift to a guardian mindset, to working with the community. They may have touched on that, but it wasn't fully embraced up to this point. And now it has to resonate. It has to sink in and penetrate in order for police departments to advance in this country. And we must work with that community.
And you talked about, explain a little bit in terms of that advanced community policing. What do you mean by that?
Well, Omaha, we have something in place, and it got a little disrupted in COVID, of course. We all know that, and that's not our subject today. But there must be a way that you communicate with the public on at least a weekly basis, preferably daily basis. And we do that in Omaha. We're communicating with the public every day in all of our precincts, but on a weekly basis, our upper level command staff, myself included when I can make it, is available to our community on a weekly basis through the Empowerment Network 360. And it's become so organic that if there's an issue to discuss that took place the previous week, you can go to that meeting and we will be there to talk about it. And when you work with the community and you desire a relationship, just like any relationship, there'll be ups and downs. And that gives us a forum to address that relationship, acknowledge when we're wrong sometimes, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And also acknowledge what areas we're going to take to improve. And I think that's an advanced form of community policing that we want to reconnect with, in person here in 2021 and build upon that. Because even Omaha, even though I like to say that we're ahead of a lot of cities because I've been there and I've seen them, we still have a lot of progress, and there's a strategic plan that we have in place to get even better. And unfortunately, it's not out of alignment with anything I'm hearing from our community.
Yeah, this whole thing of this thing of building trust, and sometimes I know, Chief, you look out and you see all this stuff nationally, and you're like, wait a minute, you're making our job extremely hard because of some of the practices and some of the things that is happening around us. A good relationship starts with trust.
It does.
And so, what's your thoughts on? I've been telling folks for weeks, the volume is turned way too up. We got to figure out a way to just calm this thing down and have some meaningful conversation. But it seems to me, Chief, that what's popping up repeatedly is black men are having these negative encounter with police officers, and I don't know, at the root cause of some of that. Begin to talk about really, because it's like just like a good relationship. You can't begin a healing process until you sit down and say, you know what, Chief, why do you treat me like this, or vice versa? Well, why every time I stop you, you don't comply? I mean, I'm just kind of I'm at a loss for words. How do we get there?
So Tim, that's a great question and foundation you laid on that question, because right now, when we're turning on the nightly news, almost nightly, we're seeing some type of negative police encounter with an African-American male predominantly. The psychology of people will show you there's a pretty substantial studies on this. For every one negative that you see, it's going to take 3 positives to get that out of somebody's head. So even though it's not necessarily occurring in Omaha, if it's occurring somewhere else and you're seeing it on the nightly news or national news, the cable channels, that one negative will resonate with Omaha, and it'll take 3 positives for us to overcome that. So a lot of this right now is a little bit of it spiraling on itself with perhaps some hypersensitivity on both sides of the equation. And that's not what we want. What we want is an opportunity to work in conjunction with our community and develop that trust. So we got to get through this particular moment of it resonating every night. And that's going to take work on all sides, including the media on that front. Because if we want to make this better, we first have to reset things.
Yeah.
And I'm waiting for an opportunity to do that.
Yeah. And that's important in terms of reset. But now talk about really, it's because the country is such a pointed conversation. I believe either we're going to have to figure out how do we be proactive and jump ahead of it, because I think from a federal level, I think the people, we've seen enough. You know how that whole saying, enough is enough. And so how can we be proactive in really looking at legislation and policies and practices and training, the kind of things to help strengthen, so we take the base, we have a good foundation that we're standing on. How do we move it to the next level to continue to do the kind of things that you're talking about?
So here's the next level that I see, and I think we're making strides in this. And I think everything we've seen this last year is really, really pushing this next level. And when you talk about legislation and you talk about policies being enacted, really they're designed to assist with the culture, to make the culture of a police department better. Because the reality of it is, a bad officer can break a policy, can break a legislative law. They'll do that. The goal is to pressure and condense that with those policies and laws to make a better culture. And the one thing that I have seen over the course of this last year that really gives me promise for the profession is this. Police chiefs across the country, we'll hold you accountable. We have for a long time now. We'll fire you, we'll hold you accountable, we'll set a culture. But just like a professional sports team, let's take that. The championship teams, they'll kind of police themselves. The players themselves will say, hey, you're late to this meeting. You're not doing this appropriately. You can't have this. I see policing, I see that starting to seep into the roll calls in the locker rooms where officers are saying, hey, I don't like how you handled that call. don't like how you did this. We don't do that here. And it's that ground level improvement that I've seen this last year that I think takes policing to the next level. The legislative laws and the policy changes that you're seeing being pushed all go towards culture that should also assist with that.
Man, I love what you just said. And being a former athlete, playing, football was my sport. Shout outs to USD, University of South Dakota, Coyotes. But that team, that accountability, what you're speaking about, self-check, that was the culture. Now, when you did something great, that a boy, but in terms of just if you didn't do your part, it was like not only you would get it from coach, which is management, but the team members, which was worse than the coach reprimanding you, was your peers. It meant more, the pressure points more, and you felt more because you were letting them down. And I think Chief, if we can create a culture that self-check, that it is going to be okay, because I still say it's culture. The culture has to say, no, hell no, we're not going to tolerate these type of behaviors.
Tim, can I give you an analogy on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So police work is, it's got a lot of variables to it. And we are entering into people's lives at the worst possible moment, oftentimes putting ourselves in physical peril. And that's a challenge to a human being to put all that together. And there's nothing more impressive than an officer that can handle all of that. So we have to have some balanced expectations. We know that things will occur in society, especially in a city the size of Omaha with 500,000 people. But my analogy is this. When you look at the George Floyd incident, and I use this because everybody's aware of it.
Right.
What was extremely concerning to me was, of course, the actions of the primary officer, their children, but the inability of the other officers to intervene. What you want in a good cultured police department is for somebody, one of those officers, to say, hey, we need to get off his neck. Hey, we need to get off his neck. And if he doesn't respond at that point, you push him off. And that's that self-check. That's what players do on championship teams.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're driving for culture within police departments across the country. And I can control the best of my ability what Omaha does, and that's what we're attempting to do.
Yeah, right on. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, let's wrap it up in terms of just how people can help. I mean, we're in this together. So, Chief, kind of just give us a couple items in terms of just takeaways in terms of how people that are viewing this can help. We'll be right back. Stay with me. Welcome back to Heartland Focus. My guest is Chief Todd Smatter. Chief, I got about 2 minutes, man. So give me just high level, what can people do begin to kind of dial this thing down? Some things that the citizens can do.
Yeah, we'll just talk about Omaha first, and maybe then we'll extrapolate it outward. I would ask Omahans to realize and maybe reflect on the fact that we've been working hard at this for a long time. Let's not forget all of our accomplishments, and let's realize we have attempted to work together with the community for a long time, and we really desire to, because working with the community from 2017, 18, and 19 brought us to our lowest level of shootings, our lowest level of homicides in 40 some years, that 3-level stretch. Now things got a little bit out of whack with COVID, but we're on our way to going back to those pre-COVID levels. And that's a product of the community and the police department working closely together. And when we don't work together, you see the crime go up. And because of COVID, because of the pandemic, it's hard to police when you can't interact with people. You saw the numbers go up. So look at that as an example of our cooperation, working together, 17, 18, and 19 versus 20. And then watch what happens in 2021 when we start to be able to work with the community again. You will see the value and the importance of the system that we have in place. And we don't want to derail the system. We want to keep going on with it. So that's what I ask of Omaha. And then just from a national level, as we're working through this, we need to have some balance as to what direction we are going and how fast, and have some understanding to it. We want police departments to start to progress, to get body cameras, to do extra training, to do all that. But not all police departments are at a position where they can do it as quickly as others can, because they're making up a lot of ground.
Right.
Every police department's not the same, and our progression along the pendulum is farther along in some cities as not in others. So when things happen in other cities, you got to ask yourself, would that have happened in Omaha, or would that have happened somewhere else? And a lot of the cities that I see that are involved in some of these controversies, to be quite frank with you, are behind the times.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, man, I'm out of time. And what we're going to do, stay with me, Chief, and we'll finish up. But, hey, that's all for this episode of Heartland Focus. Make today the beginning of your best year yet. Stay safe, social distance, wash your hands, put that mask on, you guys. Be good to yourself. Take the time. It makes it so much easier to be good to others when you take the time to be good to yourself. Until next time, I'm out. Tim Clark.